Hello and welcome back to the ESBR Boxing's YouTube channel. Delighted once again to be joined by Paul Kelly as we're still here in Oleksandr Usyk Tyson Fury rematch mode. We've got a lot to talk about. Thank you for joining me again, Paul. For anyone watching, if you're interested in this content, if you're enjoying all our Fury and Usyk content, if you're enjoying all the content on the channel, please like, comment, subscribe, and please do let me and Paul know what you think of this video and our opinions. Paul, we're here to discuss two of the biggest men, two of the biggest stars in boxing. But what I want to know from you is a bit of a different angle with this one. So it's not for undisputed status. We know with the IBF taking the bout off Oleksandr Usyk. Again, we won't get into that because that's an hour-long video. It's not for undisputed status. So now I think this leaves the question of, is Tyson Fury Oleksandr Usyk's biggest threat? You know, we've got some new heavyweights on the block. We've seen what happened with Daniel Dubois in the fight with Oleksandr Usyk. Do you still feel that Tyson Fury, taking into account the first fight, taking into account what we've seen in heavyweight boxing over recent months, is Tyson Fury Oleksandr Usyk's biggest threat?
Thanks for having me on again, mate. So as you mentioned, a bit of a different angle here we're going for. I think, yeah, it's a really interesting question. It's one I hadn't really thought of, and
Mm.
when you do mention it, you're like, is he? It's hard to say. I think, ahead of the first fight, you got to say obviously yes. Having watched the first fight, it was super close. I'm still going to say yes. I do still believe Fury's Usyk's biggest threat. Again, it's an age-old saying, and it's a bit of a cliche in boxing. Stylistically, styles make
Hmm.
fights, whatever. This is a hard style for Usyk. He overcame it in the first fight, although it was close. Maybe some people had Fury, but that's fair enough. Usyk did get the victory in the end. And I think it all depends on styles, mate. It's funny because, you know me, I've always beat the drum about Anthony Joshua. Oh, if they had a trilogy, he would have won. But, I probably have a bit of egg on my face now, but we'll not get into that. The Dubois one you mentioned. So, if you're thinking if Fury isn't his biggest threat, who are you looking at? You're looking at some of the other fighters at the upper echelons of the division. You've got, obviously, as you mentioned, Dubois. Yes, Usyk's already beaten him and got him out of there, but then there was that contentious low blow. Um, and just the way Dubois fought against Joshua, you're like, he doesn't have a care in the world almost. He's just like, I'm going to go in there and absolutely annihilate you. You know,
Hmm.
he was maybe a little low on confidence around that. People were still questioning Dubois' heart. Is did he really want to be in there? I don't think there's any question of that now. He's gone on an incredible run since that Usyk defeat. Was the underdog against well, he beat, he had to come through hairy moments against Jarrell Miller, got him out of there. Hergovic, he was an underdog. Yeah, he took a lot of punches at the early on, but then that would seem to be a perfect game plan. Annihilated Hergovic, then almost made him quit. Joshua obviously as well knocked him down a handful of times before stopping him. So you look at Dubois and you think he's really riding the crest of a wave, so he could be a massive threat. And we already know he was a threat to Usyk because there was that moment. Yes, it might have been low or whatever, but he did have his moments in that fight. So he would probably be backing himself in a rematch against Usyk. Usyk maybe a little, he's in his late 30s now. Dubois probably right in his prime. So yeah, I think Dubois maybe still seen as quite a big threat. I'm still having Fury up as the biggest threat, but I've got Dubois in there. Names that you're kind of at the top of the division. Yeah, is Zhang a threat? Yes, he is, but again, into his 40s now. Do I see that fight happening? Probably not. Caballal depends kind of how that fight goes, but I think that style, Usyk would personally be able to deal with fairly comfortably. Similarly, Joseph Parker, I think that's a style that Usyk could overcome. Martin McCauley's an interesting one. Billy Nelson's man. I know Billy Nelson's banging the drum saying that he dropped or hurt or whatever it was with Usyk in sparring. It might have well have been true. Bakuli is a big lump of a man, so he could also be a threat. But yeah, for now, I'm not going to stick my neck on the line and say that, anyone's a bigger threat than Tyson Fury right now. I'm going to stay with it. But in the aftermath of this rematch, if Usyk does beat Fury, then obviously you're looking at maybe the Dubois, the Bacolis of this world as potentially the biggest threats to Usyk in the aftermath.
Yeah, I think you've analysed that brilliantly. One thing I want to pick up on, obviously, you have got the we'll say the up and comers of the division, your Martin Bacolis, Caballals, etc., who are looking for their big night, their big stage to get their chance to prove themselves. One thing I do want to ask off your answers is stylistically, Usyk's a nightmare for any heavyweight because you want your same with Tyson Fury. You want as a heavyweight, almost like you say with Dubois and Hrgovic. Right, Hrgovic is going to try and bum me out. He can't bum me out. I'm going to ride the wave and I'm going to knock him out. That's heavyweight boxing. It's all sometimes whoever lands first, whoever lands the biggest one. Then you get your Furies and your Usyk's who just completely the equation just gets ridiculous. Do you think stylistically? A big power puncher who's coming forward to try and knock him out is an easier night's work for Usyk and less of a threat than Fury's style of almost at times trying to trade in the pocket with him, trying to box and move. So in the case of answering it, do you think Usyk is better off against a big power puncher who's coming chasing him?
I don't know. It's really interesting because you would describe Anthony Joshua as a big power puncher, but he didn't box like that in either fight really against he tried to box Usyk. So unless maybe it's just when you get in the ring with Usyk, if you are a big power puncher, so to speak, like you would describe Dubois as a big power puncher throwing these massive big shots. And he wasn't able to really properly hit Usyk flush in the chin. Usyk's head movement brilliant, his footwork's incredible. So it's one of those, and I know we mentioned it in an easier video, in another video, mate. And it's so much easier said than done to try and
Mm,
put it on Usyk. Like
yeah.
it's just, if it was that easy, someone would have done it by now. I think. You know what I mean? Like look at all these people. He's been a smaller man against Dubois, Joshua twice. Even Chisora, he was a smaller man against every Fury, obviously, all of his heavyweight fights, bar maybe Charles Witherspoon, he's been the smaller man against, you would say, big punchers, and he's been able to navigate every single one. So it is maybe more difficult than everyone's letting on to just try and take him out. So I'd say, are you better off trying to just, a big puncher putting it on Usyk? Yeah, maybe you are, but you can't just go in there and say, stuff it. I'm going to throw a couple of right hands here. Like that's not the way it works because then he'll humiliate you, because we know how
Yeah.
good he is. Um, I'd say that I'd say that we've definitely seen Usyk hurt a few times, but hurting him and then following up and actually stopping him seems to be a whole different equation. Um, Maybe you can try and approach an outbox Usyk, but again, to outbox Oleksandr Usyk, you have to be different gravy, really, don't you? Like, because nobody can really, we haven't seen anyone outbox him. It's just very difficult to do. Saw Fury maybe in instances doing it, so maybe that is a blueprint of how to beat him. But doing that for 12 rounds is another story as well.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on there. I think we've seen some, like you say, some of the biggest punchers in the division try it and fail. So, like you say, it genuinely, I think it is a case of everyone has a game plan and then they get in there with him, almost as a case of looking at their corner and go, what is this bloke sort of thing. So yeah, I agree. Fury is still the biggest threat to him. But please, guys, let us know down below in the comments what you think. Is Tyson Fury the biggest threat to Oleksandr Usyk? Is it Daniel Dubois after the controversy in their first fight? Is it Martin Bakole? Is Billy Nelson correct? And can he be the first man to solve the puzzle? Paul, thank you once again for joining me. And as I say, guys, please like, comment, and subscribe.